What's up? It's late. It's not too late. It's 8 p.m. It's raining. I'm going to speed through the Giants and Commanders tonight because my friend's a Broncos fan and he wants me to make the Broncos one. So, well, first off, Daniel Jones, very underrated in my books. I mean, you look at last year, wasn't too great at all. Actually, was pretty horrific last year before he got hurt. But the year before that, 2022, this is a very good season. He's to put on to, he was surrounded by a team that's not very good. I mean, besides Saquon, his top target is Darius Slayton, who's not bad, but wide receiver one, Darius Slayton, has never had more than 770 yards in a season. I mean, that's not the guy you want as your number one. So I'm gonna put Daniel Jones in like ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I think he'll be better than Aaron Rodgers next year. The only reason he's not in show flashes is because he's at that age where if he does something cool, it's not showing flashes. It's just what the average quarterback should be doing. It's you should be able to make a play. Drew Lock, I'm a Seahawks fan. He did great stuff for us last year. Got a lot of love for the guy. I hope he succeeds at some point. DeVito came in and played well for them, which is really not what they needed. It really ruined their season by playing well and losing them a couple draft positions. Singletary, he's the guy that's gonna back up, replace Saquon. He's not horrible by any means, but he's nowhere near Saquon. But last year being where was he last year? He was on the Texans. Yeah, the Texans played the Ravens. I mean, Texans were high-powered offense last year, and he played a role. He played his role, and he did well in that role. Tyrone Tracy Jr. Not sure who that is. Is just rookie fifth-round pick out of Purdue. I don't really have much to say about him. Eric Gray, is this the guy from the no, okay, I do remember him at Oklahoma now that you say Oklahoma, but he hasn't done a ton in the NFL. And Dante Miller, I'm not sure either. South Carolina, 25-year-old rookie. This dude is John Emery age. I've learned John Emery is still in college. The LSU running back from the 2019 season. The backup to Edwards-Helaire. His partner in crime, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, has not Clyde Simmons. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has pretty much ran his course in the NFL all throughout the time John Emery has still been in college. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, now that Pacheco's there, he's getting phased out more and more every year. Don't really think he's going to be in the league in like 3 or 4 years. Malik Neighbors took him like the fifth or sixth overall. A lot of Giants fans are excited about that, and I think he's going to be really good. But the problem with drafting a receiver first overall is there are glaring issues around here that you have to address before you get a receiver. I mean, you look at Odell Beckham in his time; he was great in New York, but there were just so many other problems that it doesn't really matter. Giants fans can be fond of his time there, but at the end, he didn't bring you anything. I think we have a very different conversation about it. We're having a very different conversation about the Giants. If instead of Odell Beckham in 2014, they took Zach Martin, who was taken just 5 picks later. Take Zach Martin, or like a trench guy, really. Trenches are what you should build up before you build anything up. That's why the Seahawks were so good in the early 2010s. They built up the defensive line and the defense, and the offensive line wasn't great, but it was okay. And then they just plugged in Russell Wilson, and he was good enough to get the job done. You got to take one of the trench guys here. And if they would have taken one of them, they're probably a lot better than they were over the past decade. But instead, they go with a receiver who has had a good career, but at the end of the day, didn't bring any success to the team. So that could this could just happen all over again with Malik Neighbors. What happened with Odell? Wan'Dale Robinson, solid year last year. They're gonna want to see a jump from him though. If he's the wide receiver 2 now. Slayton, wide receiver 3. He's been pretty consistent for them his entire career. A lot similar to Sterling Shepard, who doesn't look like he's on the team anymore. He might have retired. He's been in the league. He's on the Buccaneers. But he was just like a guy that people around the league probably didn't recognize a ton, but he was very solid for 5-6 years in New York. Hodgins, and wide receiver 5. Those are fine stats. Not really gonna. Allen Robinson, used to be very good. He's 30, gonna be 31 soon. His career is pretty much over at this point. Maybe he's got a couple years left, but I don't see him doing too much in New York. Miles Boykin, the big receiver from Notre Dame, used to be on the Ravens. 6'4", 220. He's a big guy. I really liked him coming out of college. Didn't do a ton in the league. Gunnar Olszewski, who I don't know how the Patriots find these guys. Bemidji State, come on. Has anyone ever come from there besides him? Not really. Three players have been drafted and none since the 70s. They don't really get a lot done over there, but I don't know how they found Gunnar Olszewski, but he's a good special teamer. And it's pretty much all I gotta say for them. Bellinger, underrated. Numbers aren't eye popping, but for a tight end, he does his role. Don't know who Lawrence Cager is. His 4th season out of Georgia, 4 receptions last year. Hey. Manhurts, if I'm not mistaken, he's on the Jets for a little bit. This is his 9th season. He's been around for a while, I guess. In Carolina, Jacksonville is where I remember him. But he's also spent a year in Denver. And now he's in New York. Andrew Thomas, one of the best tackles in the league. Runyon, John Runyon, solid. Not the worst you could have. This offensive line was horrendous last year. John Michael Schmitz, early pick last year. He's questionable. He'll probably be healthy. But, a lot of high hopes for him. Aaron Stinney, no clue. 7th season from James Madison. And pretty much anything's better than Evan Neal, who is all the way down here because he is just so horrendous, actually. 7th overall pick, and he is just awful. Jermaine Elamuna. Okay. Realistically, if Tommy DeVito doesn't come in and doesn't win all those games, you have a higher draft pick, and you should have took Joe Alt if you were in that situation. They didn't. I think Joe Alt's going to be very good. All the signs are pointing to him. He's been a monster at Chargers rookie camp or training camp offseason. He's been incredible. He's a Notre Dame offensive lineman. What do you expect? They have just been pumping out guys for a decade now. Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey, Ronnie Stanley, just to name a few. Eichenberg. I mean, there's five solid, four great, and one solid lineman from one season, from one school. Brian Burns. First off, this is one of my favorite defensive lines in all of football. Even with losing Leonard Williams last year in a trade, you acquire Brian Burns, who is very good. He's gonna be very good this year. Dexter Lawrence. Now that Aaron Donald's gone, I think Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle. I think Chris Jones is even better than Aaron Donald last year, but now it's for sure Chris Jones is the best, and Dexter Lawrence is right up there with him. Dexter Lawrence is very good. Nunez Roches, fine player. He's not bad, rotational piece. 31-year-old guy, just plug him in. Azeez Ojulari, again, another good player. 2.5 sacks. Numbers don't look great, but I can tell you he's better than that. He's a better player than what the numbers say. Again, another Boogie Basham. That's a good rotational piece. His real name Carlos. I'm pretty sure his real name is Carlos. Carlos, it is. Okereke, fine. Micah McMahon, fine. Isaiah Simmons, really just a guy you could plug in and play really anywhere on the defense. He was like the 8th overall pick. Looking back, a little high. But, I mean, he didn't really do great with the Cardinals, but last year was a pretty big season in terms of his development. So I think he's going to be pretty good. Kayvon Thibodeau, another really good defensive end. He is so close to breaking out into being just like that tier of one of the best, but he is also so far. He's, this season's going to be really big for him. Cordell Flott, solid. This secondary is really not horrendous either. Cordell Flott's fine. Darnay Holmes is not the best, but getting the job done. Belton, not totally sure. Took him a couple years ago, 2 picks last year. And it looks like they got what got it, but also it looks like they don't, because they drafted Tyler Nubin, who probably the best safety in the draft last year. No, I think he's going to be solid. He wears 31. Reminds me of another safety, my favorite player of all time. Well, not my favorite Seattle. My favorite player of all time is Johnny Manziel, but that's a story for another day. Pinnock, solid. Deontay Banks, very good. He's going to be very good. And also Trey Herndon, who I haven't heard his name in a while. But he's on the Giants now. Graham Gano, he's been in the league for a while. In his 15th season. I remember him in Carolina, and has he been anywhere besides Carolina and New York? Ravens in 2009. And that's a free agent. Washington. I mean, I started watching in 2012, so yeah, pretty much gave you his whole career path since I've been watching. And so, on paper, this isn't bad. I mean, they're in for some improvement. Giants. We got to week 1 over Minnesota. Yeah, week 2, I'm taking them over the Commanders. I think they'll lose to the Browns, lose to the Seahawks, lose to the Bengals, probably lose to the Steelers, beat the Commanders, beat the Panthers. A little upset here off the bye week. I think they go in. They defend the home turf against Tampa Bay. I think they take one from the Saints. They'll lose to the Ravens. I'll say they lose to the Falcons, and then they're gonna lose to the Colts. It's gonna put the season at 7-10, which is an improvement. I mean, it's not the playoffs, and I feel like for a lot of teams, if you don't make the playoffs, I mean, isn't good enough to make the playoffs, but it's also not bad enough to get like a top pick. A lot of a lot of fan bases are like, we're not in the playoffs, but we're not really in that spot to make a big selection. But I mean, I think it'll be solid. They'll definitely be better than last year. I think this is an improved team, and they will show it on the field.